Hey IAC, it's actually nice today, so make sure to go out and get some sun. But if you're inside, today I want to share on the first of 4 practices that I think hold tremendous value for a rule of life in an age of isolation. This first practice is praying the hours, or what Anglicans have sometimes called the daily office. It is tremendously comforting to know that God is present with us at all times, at the best moments, at the worst moments, at the biggest moments, and the most mundane moments. And like Brother Lawrence teaches us from church history, we can practice the presence of God anytime, anywhere. But it's also tremendously easy to forget that God is present with us at all times. It's a truth that's so subtle we don't always remember to pay attention to it. So it can be helpful to have anchors in the day to point us back to that reality. I heard this story somewhere and it's really stuck with me. A young disciple was asking his mentor why, if God was always present, why do you need to take the time for a set apart time for prayer? And the mentor said, well, water is all around you in the air, but if you want to quench your thirst, you have to go to a well to drink. The major well of encountering God's presence throughout Christian history has been gathering for worship together on Sundays, but I dare speculate that the second most important well has been praying the hours. The practice of stopping to pray at several different times of day. You see it all over Scripture if you're looking for it and paying attention for it in Daniel's life, in the lives of the earliest apostles, several times in Acts. In church history, it became a monastic discipline, but in the Reformation, the Anglican Archbishop Thomas Cranmer released that practice into the wider church, first starting with morning and evening prayer, and then over time it developed actually into a rhythm of 4 prayer times per day. Morning, noonday, evening, and compline, or bedtime. Each hour has its own needs and therefore its own prayers that correspond to where our souls often are in those pieces of the day. But in a season where our schedules are completely upended, establishing even one of these hours of prayer in our daily rhythm can allow us to be refreshed by the presence of God and can strengthen us to see that presence in all the other hours that we don't explicitly set aside for prayer. At IAC, we encourage people to pray the hours from the Book of Common Prayer because we think that particular version is gospel-soaked, scripture-rooted, and puts our eyes on Christ instead of on our own practices. We have one format for praying the hours up at springsiac.org/devotion. I encourage you to check that out. Other versions that we really like include the Daily Prayer app, which I'll link to in the description of this video. I would encourage you to try them out for a couple days, play around with them, and then find a rhythm that brings life to you and stick with it. For me right now, that's morning prayer and compline with a noonday prayer with our church over Zoom that we're throwing in this season of isolation. But whenever works for you, God is present and He's ready and waiting to meet with you. These hours of prayer are not appointments to keep. They are invitations to abide in what is already true. God is with you, and He is for you, and He is working in you and working through you. We just sometimes need a few alarms to help us wake up to those realities.